Hi everybody and welcome to another Mediumship Clinic live stream with me, Martin Twycross. If you're watching this on the replay, then it's lovely to see you on the replay. If you're watching this in person, then pop your name in the chat box, and if you have any questions, you can start loading them up. So this Mediumship Clinic live Q&A, I do them every month. It's an opportunity for you to bring any questions you have on mediumship, development, spiritualism and related topics. Bring them along to me. I will do my utmost, my best to answer them to the best of my ability. Now, to ask a question, you do actually have to be logged into either YouTube or Google to be able to do that. So that's important to recognize. The way it works is I work through the questions I get asked one at a time. And so whatever order they appear in is how I work, with the exception of if you use the super chat feature, which is a little $ in the bottom of the chat box. If you're here live in person, you can make a small super chat donation and I will answer your question as the next question. So I'm hoping that we've got a few joining us. If you are, please feel free to type in the chat box. Let me know it's all functioning correctly. My OBS updated literally an hour before this session and it broke all my functionality. So I had a lot of fun trying to get it all back to rights again. So I'm hoping it's going to work. Sometimes we never know. So we just got to go with the flow and see what happens. That's always the case, isn't it? So as I say, so Rain Celestine sounds good now. That's wonderful. Glad it's working. Lovely to see you, Rain. So yeah, if you're joining us and you have questions, feel free to drop them in the chat box and I shall work through them one at a time. Now, somebody had an interesting question that I thought I'd just touch upon in this beginning of the chat. Many of you will be familiar with my Sitting in the Power audio meditation. There's a shortened version on the YouTube channel. There's a full-length version available from my store and at my website, martintwycross.com. And the way it works in terms of the Sitting in the Power meditation is we ask you to visualize a spark of light, a spark of God, a small white light within yourself that you expand and grow as you breathe. So you expand it to fill your entire body and move out beyond. And it's the light of your soul. And then you move and blend that light with the spirit world. So the question was asked, what happens if you can't visualize a white light? Or what happens if you can't visualize a spark of God? And some people are not able to visualize anything. Some people have very little ability to visualize at all. And for those people, that can be a challenge. I get that. I see that. Most people can visualize to some degree, but some can't. So we have to accept that. So I would say visualize whatever you feel you can. Don't worry about visualizing a spark of God. Maybe that's too complex. Just visualize a speck of light. Visualize a candle flame. Visualize a dot of light and see that dot grown bigger. If you can't, if the light metaphor is a struggle for you, you can work with having a feeling of energy and expanding that energy. So you might have to adapt it to what works for you. Now, in my meditation Sitting for Spirit course, I did do another meditation, which at some stage I promise I shall release to the general public as well. And in that one, I try to move it away from the traditional standard way of doing Sitting in the Power and to try and do it differently without the same terms. So in that one, it's got more free reign for you to work with it. But obviously, most people listening to this don't have access to that unless you wish to buy my course, Meditation and Sitting for Spirit, which is 4 meditations and it's 4 2-hour classes. And in that, there's 4 different meditations. First one's your traditional Sitting in the Power. The second one is the adapted, changed, tweaked, new, improved Sitting in the Power, if you will. The third one is meditation to get to know your guides. And the fourth one is a meditation for spiritual development, which pulls in a lot of spiritual development meditation practices from different traditions. So that's all available from my website if you're interested. But what you'll need to do, and I always say to everybody, is you have to find out what works for you. So you have to suck it and see. Try different things, see what works, and go with the flow. If you truly cannot visualize, then you have to move into something with feeling or something with just a sense of knowing. But trust that whatever happens, it will work regardless. You just need to have confidence that Don't get too hung up upon the visualization. That's the key point. So Susan, you've got a question for me. So if there's more questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat box, because without questions, it's going to be a challenging question and answer session. So Susan, you've got a question for me. Do you have any teachings about color interpretation in readings? And it's an interesting question. I'm going to take you back a step and say, what do colors mean? If you get a color in a reading, what does a color mean? And are there fixed definitions of color, or do you need to find your own individual interpretation of color? And some mediums believe one, and some mediums believe the other, and some mediums believe a mix of both. So speaking of meditations, I have a second meditation available on my website called A Rainbow Journey. And that's a meditation for you to explore 7 primary colors plus another 6 additional colors. The primary colors, we all pretty much familiar with those, but the 6 additional colors, things like black, white, silver, gold, pink, etc., brown, you've got different colors that are interesting to know. And you've got to remember that with color, we might say blue, but there are multiple shades of blue. You've got azure blue, sunflower blue, navy blue. You've got all the different shades of blue. So it's not as simple as just giving you blue. Here's blue. This is what blue means. It's like there are different shades within blue. So we've got to understand those as well. So the meditation I offer, it is a visualization. So you visualize yourself in a room of a certain color, and you sit within that color, you feel into that color, you become aware of how that color affects you. And it's about you finding your own understanding of each color. So there's a bit where you sit in a blue room, but there's no restriction on how many times you can do that part of the meditation. You can go back and do it 20, 30 times with 30 different shades of blue. 50 shades of gray. No, don't go there. Not good. But you understand what I'm saying. You can go into it as many times as you like with different shades of the same color to help build up your library of color and its understanding for you. I also have one of my videos. I have a series of 24 videos covering a huge number of topics, and you should be able to see there on the screen, special topic number 11 is working with color. So that one there, I do talk about the 2 different schools of thought. And these videos, they're £13 each, available from my website. And so with color, there's 2 schools of thought. There's the fixed meaning school, and there's your own interpretation school. I personally go more the own interpretation route, but yes, certain colors have certain energies, absolutely. So I do give some of the more standard color definitions and meanings within that video, whilst also encouraging you to use some meditation like a rainbow journey to find your own meanings and see if they differ from what you're taught as traditional meanings. The problem with traditional meanings is if we're taught them too often, then they become something you believe and know. So sometimes it's better to do your own interpretation, meaning of color first, because then you're not clouded with any pre-existing knowledge or judgments. So then the next point is, okay, when you're doing a reading, there's different layers of the aura. So we've got the physical layer closest to the body. Then we move out more into the mental and emotional layers, and then out into the spiritual layers. Yeah, some people show it's physical, emotional, mental, spiritual. Some people show it's physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. It doesn't really matter how you do it. Just understand there's different levels of the aura. And depending where you're working, in which level of the aura you're working, depends on what the color means. So red within the physical will be different from red within the emotional, would be different from red within the spiritual. That's the point I'm getting at. You can't just learn one meaning for red. Oh, there's red there. I'm sensing red within your energy. It means X. That's what it means. So yeah, it's hard, isn't it? It's absolutely hard. So you have to therefore understand as well how each one fits within the aura. Now I can see the video seems to be having fun at the moment. I'm hoping it's come back. So I'm quickly tweak the settings. I can see it's maybe having fun trying to upload. I'm just going to lower the stream rate in the hope that that helps. Okay, so if you're still hearing me okay and seeing me okay, let me know in the chat box. I could see myself that in on my own YouTube studio, it seems to be looking odd, but I have a second, I've got my iPad also streaming it as well, and that seems to be looking okay. So I'm hoping things are okay, but we'll find out. If you could just let me know in the chat box if you're experiencing anything particularly odd today, that would be wonderful. Now, seeing here fine, okay. So it's just the YouTube studio playing up. That's nice to know. So yeah, so saying within readings, then you have to move within the layers of the aura, and it has different meanings for each. So you need to know what level you're working at, and then you need to understand what the meaning is for that level. And again, there's a degree of interpretation needed. And we use our psychic abilities, our psychic faculties to do that interpretation. So really, when we're working with the aura, you're generally working psychically. So other videos that may help you with that as well would be my special topic number 4, which is psychic development, which talks about how you go about doing psychic readings as well. So that's quite a useful one to tie in with working with colour. I'd highly recommend both those together. I say they're not expensive. They're £13 each, and they run for about 2 hours or so. Great. So Laura, I can see you've made a super chat donation. That is much appreciated. I'm going to come on to your question next, because that's how it works. You can put all your questions in the chat box. I work through them one at a time, and basically, if you use super chat, I'll go to your question next. If not, I'll just work through them in order. Okay, so Laurie Paulini. Does it make sense to get better at meditation before studying mediumship? Well, meditation is a critical part of the training for working as a medium for many, many, many reasons. So in the past, people would want you to learn to meditate before you start doing mediumship. But in this day and age, you try and get people to do that now, that we won't bother trying to do any mediumship until you're all good at meditating. You'd have uproar, you'd have a riot, it's not going to happen. So the ways of old were right in that meditation is a vital thing to be able to do. If you can't learn to quieten your mind, then how can you be open to the impressions from spirit if you've not learned to keep your own mind quiet? So learning the practice of relaxation, learning to quieten the mind, learning to lose the monkey mind, that's all critical to mediumship. Learning to hold a focus, learning to build a focus and hold a link with spirit is critical. We can learn that in meditation. Now, sitting in the power is a meditation I will most often recommend. Again, the Sit in the Power meditation is available from my website. And that meditation, it's an attunement meditation. You attune to the spirit world. It's a focus meditation. You're staying focused with the spirit world. When you lose the link, you've got to go back and reconnect it. It's about discipline. All of this is exactly how you do mediumship, all of it. Check out on my channel the videos I've got on sitting in the power. First of all, why sit in the power? Number 1, why sit in the power? Second one is how to sit in the power. 3 and 4 is common problems experienced by beginners and common problems experienced by those who've been working with it for some time. That's the 4 videos. But number 1, I talk about why it's very important. And meditation, the practice of meditation is key to mediumship. It really is. So absolutely, meditation, I highly recommend you do meditation either in the early stages of developing mediumship or in parallel with it. But the better you get at meditation, specific types of meditation, the better you can become at mediumship. Now, some people I know say to me, oh, I can't stand meditating. I've never been able to meditate, and I've developed my mediumship without ever doing any form of meditation. And yes, you can develop mediumship purely by doing mediumship, but meditation will make it better. That's the key point to understand. Meditation will make it easier, will make it better, will help you along the way. All the people I know who I've taught meditation to as well as mediumship have found it beneficial. No one has yet told me, that was a waste of time. So definitely recommend it. Hope that all makes sense. So welcome, Omar. Just me. Wonderful name. Welcome to you, Judith, Amy. Harry's mum, Jersey Dude, Jane Hills. Lovely to see you all. Okay, let me go to the next question. So Rain, you got a question. In a practice reading, I saw the sitter's loved one bending at the knees with ease. Turns out in physical, he was missing a leg at the time. Did I misinterpret this, or spirit shows us without limits? So when we get something in a reading, unless you can already work out what it means, we always teach you to give what you get. Because when we start trying to interpret, there's a risk we go wrong. We interpret through our sensing, a clairsentience is what gives you the degree of interpretation. And, you know, if I saw someone bending at the knees with ease, I tell them that this loved one is bending at the knees with ease. Do you understand that? Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I get that. I understand why. If they say no, okay, let's feel why. But often I would get problems to do with the legs first. I would be shown those first, and then I would see them fully being able to do things normally and say, they're now there. But if you don't get that first part, then you're having to work it out. But in the spirit world, they have absolutely no limitations. So anybody who had anything affecting their health here, whether they have any challenges, disabilities, whatever they may have, whether it's mental, physical, whatever they may have, it lifts in the spirit world. We don't have the physical body in the spirit world. So any physical issues are left behind. We go to a body that is perfect. If you're missing a leg, you have a leg. If you had physical problems, they've gone. If you had illness, it's gone. With the mental side of things, sometimes the brain chemistry in this world can cause challenges. Sometimes it can be chemicals within this world that can cause problems, whether those are just environmental chemicals or chemicals we may consume, shall we say. In the spirit world, we go back to our true state of being mind, of being consciousness. So therefore, in the spirit world, a lot of the issues of the mind will fall away. Now, it may take time for those issues of the mind to fall away. It may not be easy for that to happen. It may, we've got to give it time for healing to take place, time for people to be able to move on. But over time, all of that will fall away with the mind. It falls away practically instantly with the body, of course, because we leave the flesh, the body behind. But with the mind, we take our mind with us. But then the issues affecting the mind begin to fall away as well. And of course, we'll get all the healing and help we need in the spirit world. So it's important to recognize, yes, that those limits are not present in spirit. So I hope that helps you, Rain. Okay, so keep listing your questions for me. If you want to get your question asked next, you can use the super chat, the little $ at the bottom of the chat box. Click on that. If you make a small super chat donation, I will get to your question next. If you want to support the channel, you can use super chat. You can use super thanks as well. If you're watching this on a replay, you can use YouTube's new feature, super thanks, as well, to make a donation. You can also use PayPal Me. There's a PayPal Me link in the description. There's also a PayPal Me link on the ticker that you can see, and it's also pinned to the top of the chat box. All of those, if you want to buy me a coffee, they're much appreciated. So, next question. Just me. How often should a person practice mediumship readings? The thing about that question is it's such an open question. It's like saying to somebody, how often should you play sport? How often should you read books? How often should you do anything? And there's a simple answer, really, isn't there? And it's basically, it depends on how committed you are to it. Depends how much you enjoy it. It depends how eager you are to learn with it as well. So all of these aspects, you see. But with mediumship, do you have to be doing a reading a day or a reading a week? No. You just need to be doing it regularly. Back in the day when I started training, we didn't have a lot of this internet stuff. We didn't have Zoom. We didn't have any of these online lives. None of that at all. It was all done in person. And it was done in churches and centres. And people only ran circles generally once a month. So you'd be lucky if you could attend more than 3 or 4 circles a month. So you'd be working once a week if you were lucky. And then when you began doing readings, it was who you could get to sit for a reading with you. So it wasn't possible to go and find buddies to team up with like you can at the moment in things like Facebook groups or elsewhere. It just wasn't possible to do that. And we all developed perfectly fine. So the point I'm making is it's not necessarily about the quantity of practice or sittings or readings you do. It's a lot of it's about the quality of the teaching you're getting, the quality of the training you're getting. And when you are practicing, it's about making the practice valuable and making it useful and making it beneficial to you. If you just keep doing the same thing, you won't move as far forward as someone who's trialing, testing different things. But a lot of people in this day and age, I feel, try and do too much. I know people who are wanting to do multiple readings per day, and it's crazy. Even working mediums, a lot of them don't do that many a day anyway. So I don't recommend you go crazy. That's my point. I don't recommend you go crazy. But equally, whatever feels right to you, if you feel like you want to keep your hand in, you want to do at least some mediumship every week, that's great. But I don't think you need to do it every day. I think every day would be absolute overkill. It's nice to have some days without it as well. Yeah, I love when I do my demonstrations, and it's just, but I wouldn't want to be doing one every night. It becomes too much then. So, but if there's one, if I can do it weekly, great. So hopefully that all makes sense to you. Okay, let's find the next question. Laura, do you teach things where you are present? Sometimes, yes, I do. Sometimes. All the courses are on my website. They were all in-person courses. If you were in them, wonderful, but they're all recorded and made available afterwards. And the reason I do that and don't just keep teaching them over and over and over is that I do a huge amount of research when I'm doing the course, and I get very involved in the course. And the quality, I believe, what comes through because of that intense involvement is higher than if I had to redid it now. If someone said, okay, redo the course now, let's have another 4 sessions of those topics. Yeah, I could go back to my notes, I could go back to presentations and deliver it to a degree, but it wouldn't be as good as the first time. The quality wouldn't be there as it was the first time. So I'm happy to record the first time and make it available to everybody. If you're lucky enough to catch me in the courses, that's wonderful. I don't do a huge amount of practical teaching at the moment. In the future, it may change. At the moment, I'm trying to get 2 books written at the moment. So hopefully they will be out at some stage in the future. So at the moment, I'm trying not to do too much in the way of other things. So I'm happy to do my live Q&A. I will later in the year or early next year certainly be doing another course on guides and helpers. That's one that's in the pipeline, that is planned, that will be happening. So watch out for that one as well. Your second question, Laura, if you sit in the power, how long is it good before you give a reading? 15 minutes an hour. So generally, we say do not sit in the power immediately before you do a reading. And the reason why is sitting in the power for a period of time, not just 2 minutes, but sit in the power if you sit in the power, say for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, it takes you into a very passive, inactive state. And mediumship is a very active, energized state. So you're moving yourself further away from where you need to be. So it's not a good practice to sit in the power, come straight out the power and try and link with spirit. It will make it harder for you. You need some time to change. Now, how long time do you need to change? Well, each person is probably different. But I would say, personally, I would not sit in the power at least an hour before I'm going to work. Sometimes you go along to people's circles and they sit in the power and then you're working. And I would prefer there to be a good 10 minutes, I'd say, between the two. If I was teaching, if I did sit in the power, I would then do some maybe theoretical talking for 10 minutes about what we're going to do in the practice before we move on to the practice, because I want to get people back into their normal state, back to where they were, back away from that passive, relaxed state where they've been in the power. So it's also the same when we do work in churches. When we're doing inspirational address, the inspirational address is often passive, and it's a very passive energy when we're inspired by spirit. And then we need to move into an active energy. And normally I find it's one song. I need at least one song to get me going from there to there. If they say, right, you finish and you're straight into it, what I will then do is I will then do a longer introduction and talk a bit more and crack a few jokes just to get myself back into the active energy. and also to buy myself that window of time before we get going. So I hope that makes sense. I hope that you can see the benefit of that. Laura, you love to meditate. Absolutely. Meditation is a wonderful thing. If you don't meditate, I do highly recommend it. As I mentioned earlier on, you may or may not have heard it. I do have a course called Meditation and Sitting for Spirit. The prices there, sadly, are the sale prices. I must change that slide because the prices are back to the normal £65. But I still think it's a fair price for 4 2.5 hour classes. And with the meditation one, you also get 4 meditations as well. So it's excellent value. And right now, today, the pound is at its lowest price against other currencies. Our pound has dropped. So if you're in the States, in Canada, in Europe, the chances are that right now, all my products have gone very, very cheap for you because of how much the pound has dropped in value. It's almost at parity with the dollar right now. So now is a great time to purchase any of my products if you're in the States or in other countries where that happens. So Judith, thank you very much for your super chat donation. That is much appreciated. I can't see a question with it, but I do see a question and I'll get onto it. And Sarah Kay, thank you as well for your question, for your super chat donation. Much appreciated. So Judith, let me get to your question. When I do a reading, I seem to fall into it. The evidence is at first slow, then it's just there. My teachers have different opinions on this. Does this seem usual? Now, the problem we have with mediumship, there is no usual. It's very, everyone's different. Every medium works differently. Now, if we were to analyze it, that it's slow at first and then improves. First thing I'd question then is, are there nerves in the mix? Things that are affecting your ability to relax and go with the flow? Or are you uncomfortable until you hit a point where you know it's working, you know it's accepted, and then you can relax? Because I remember when I was doing readings for the first time, what would happen was, I've got a contact, I need to get it placed. Can they place it? Can they take it? Can they take it? And as soon as they took it, I could relax. Oh, it's understood, right. And then I could just enjoy it. I could enjoy working with it. And it was nice until it brought it to an end. Then I'd get another contact. Oh, well, is this one going to be taken? And it's the same with platform as well, where you do multiple contacts in a row. It's, can you get it placed? And then the anxiousness of getting it placed. And then, yes, it's placed. Oh, I can work it now. Great. I've got a luxury of time of working it. This is great. And then it's back to that anxiety. Will it get placed? Whereas over time, all of that falls away and you can just work it. So that could be in the mix. So those are two things that seem to just that fall into my mind straight away. It's always hard to diagnose what's going on with someone's mediumship when you're not watching them. If you're watching them and you're in the room with them, it's much, much easier. And we have to remember as well that some communicators are just better communicators than others. Some communicate, and also depends on the message. If someone comes forward and they're very unsure about how they're going to be taken by the recipient, that has an energy with it that makes it a bit harder to work. Also, a communicator who's not a natural communicator is much harder to work than somebody who's a great talker, loved people, really easy to get along with. They're a much easier person to work with. So you've got that in the mix as well. Also, I would ask the question as well, Judith, are you doing sitting in the power? Because what I find as well is that some people don't fully connect to spirit. What happens with some people is they don't get that instant connection. With mediumship, there's two aspects. There's being able to connect into spirit and get there, and then there's being able to stay there. If we go back to my videos, I have a video of class 3, which is connecting with spirit. And if you like, that's the ignition of getting you connected. It's starting the engine. Class 2, building power, talk about the power that sustains mediumship, the fuel for mediumship. And all of those topics as well, they're included in my course, The Fundamentals of Mediumship. And if you're interested in my study program, all those classes are part of Module 1 as well. Module 1 of the study program goes into that in great detail as well, if that interests you. But basically as well, if you don't connect well or don't get well enough connected to spirit, it's hard. But then the connection may build and become stronger with time, in which case, then basically it's going to get better. So I can see you've also posted, how do you get a tune before a reading? And basically, you've got to connect. It's the connection. There are numerous ways of connecting. There are different visualizations. We can use the breathing. We can expand our energy. We can use affirmations. I go into all of that in great detail in class 3. And also, as I say, it's part of module 1 of the study program. It's also part of the fundamentals. But every person has to find the technique that works for them. I can't say to you, here's a way to attune, here's a way to do it, go away and do it, because my way may not be your way. And what I find with most people is that a mix of different things gives the best results. But what you need to know is all the different things that may work, and then you've got to go try them for yourself, and then try different combinations. And ultimately, you'll find what does work. So no, I'm not answering your question in an easy way. But for some people, it's a visualization. For some people, it's an affirmation. For some people, it's a breathing thing. For other people, it's a mix of breathing, visualization, and affirmation. For some people, it's a physical action helps. And we're a bit like Pavlov's dog as well. Pavlov's dog, classical condition where you rang a bell and gave the dog food. Over time, when you ring the bell, the dog salivates thinking food. Over time, if we do certain things and pair it with our mediumship, those things can actually help us connect. So if you rub your hands, getting excited to do mediumship, and you're connecting to spirit whilst rubbing your hands, then the process of rubbing your hands helps connect you to spirit world if you've done it enough times to make it a conditioned response. I hope that makes sense. But I talk about all that in great detail in those classes. But definitely each person has to find out what works for them. That's the key. That's the thing to bear in mind. We're all unique. How we experience spirit is unique. How we all experience the power when we're sitting in the power is unique. How we connect to spirit, the best method for connecting us to spirit is different generally for each person. Although we can talk about the multitude of ways that work for most people so that you can find your own lane within it. So I hope that makes sense. So Sarah, I'm trying to see a question. There you go. Any advice on exercises to develop clairs that we don't normally use? I usually just know, but recently I hear words here and there. Would love to develop clairaudience, clairsentience. So the general way that the clairs develop for the majority of people is clairaudience first, clairsentience second, clairknowing third, and clairaudience last. So clairvoyance, I think I said clairaudience. Clairvoyance first, seeing, sensing, knowing, hearing if you're lucky enough to hear. I don't very often hear. And I know many mediums who don't very often hear. I go into all of this as well in detail in Mediumship Class 4, Mechanics of Mediumship. It's also covered again in my course, The Fundamentals of Mediumship. And of course, it's also covered in my study program. This falls under Module 2, Mechanics of Mediumship. The Mechanics of Mediumship, it's also covered in a great deal of detail as well, probably most detail in Getting Better Evidence course. In Getting Better Evidence, I talk about all the different types of evidence, and then I talk about how you receive them if you're mainly clairvoyant, clairsentient, clairaudient, clairknowing. So I talk about how we receive evidence in different ways and different techniques we can apply to work with different things. So say, for example, that you don't normally see, then an exercise you could do, say, to get a date would be to imagine visualizing one of those strip calendars that goes from, say, September 1 to 30. And you can imagine yourself just going down and asking spirit to stop you at a point where there's a significant date. September the 15th, 16th, I'm around there. Would you understand September the 15th, 16th? Or it was the 17th? Okay, close enough. But these are techniques we can use. And there are numerous of them. There are so many. As I say, Getting Better Evidence course has the vast majority of that in there. But generally, if it's a clair you're not used to using, what we recommend you do is do exercises where you do try and use it. One exercise I do is we get people to work for 5 minutes on each of the clairs. Another exercise we do is we get you to get something and then we get you to rework it with a different clair. So say you see an image, then you need to feel into the image. Then you need to move into a sense of knowing about it. What does it mean? Or then you need to open to sounds or words associated with it to try and get some clairaudience. So it's teaching you to try and work them all in parallel. But I don't believe anybody works with just one in isolation. They're all there, but often we're just not aware of the degree to which they're starting to come in. That's the important thing to recognize as well. People tell me, oh, I don't do clairvoyance. And I watch them work and I go, how did you get that? And they'll say, oh, I saw an image in my head. And I'll go, there you go. And say, oh, but no, I don't do that. I mainly feel it. So, but in that moment in time, you got something and you got it with an image. So you are clairvoyant. It's just, it's not dominant or you're not recognizing it. So we also get people to watch themselves working. And one exercise I like to do is get people to talk through how they're working. So the sitter is usually someone else in development. You'd usually do this in a class. And someone was saying, I'm getting a man. It's like, you ask the question, how did you get that? Or did you feel a man? Did you see a man? Did you sense a man? What was it? Or did you hear the word man in your head? What was it? Or you just knew it was a man? What was it that got that? And then his father. Now, hang on. How did you get father? Did you feel it? Did you see your own father? Did you know the feeling of love of a father and you were translating it from the feeling of love? So again, when we're analyzing our own mediumship, we get to see how we work. So those are good techniques we can use to A, understand the clairs you're using, and B, further develop them. And then isolating, working with them, pairing them together, that's all what I would recommend. I find personally clairsentience comes in the middle of development for a lot of people. But you have to be a bit of a touchy-feeling person to get it. If you don't do emotions, if you don't go there into emotions, those people are blocking themselves from a great deal of clairsentience, because it's those aspects that we're working with. You've got to be open. You know, people who don't do emotions, I send them off to go and watch some weepy movies, to go and watch some emotional movies, and to try and open to the emotion that's coming through, to try and be open to it. That's kind of a good form of training I recommend. So go and watch a few emotional chick flicks to get into that. Helps. So I hope that helps. Let me go back. Where did we get to with our questions? So, and don't forget, if you're enjoying the live Q&A, don't forget to hit the like button. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, do subscribe to the channel, do hit the notification bell, and then you get notification of whenever I'm going to go live. You also get notification when I post videos. I will be posting another one this month, so look out for that. Okay, next question. Denise. While practicing my mediumship and psychic work, I find trying to read photos distracting. Try to separate my own thoughts from spirit. Do you have any advice? Absolutely. You do not want your own thoughts. Whenever we do psychic work or spirit work, the one thing you do not want is your own thoughts. So how do you get rid of our own thoughts? We learn to let them settle down. What's the best technique for letting our own thoughts learn to settle down and moving to that state of blank mind? Meditation, absolutely. So learning to quieten our own mind is key. Now, when we get a photo given to us, what happens is we try to get information by looking at the photo. Oh, what do I feel about this person? And what happens is you may end up doing what I call cold reading, trying to second guess it all, and that's not good. What you need to do, now you can't psychically read a photo. That's an important thing to recognize as well. So if somebody gives me a photo, I want that to be either a photo of somebody in spirit, in which case I make a spirit link and receive all the information about that person in the photo from spirit. That's what I'm looking for. I can't get it from them in the photograph, because the photograph doesn't really tell you a lot. But what you can do is get it from the sitter psychically. Whoever's photo that is, you can move into their energy and get the information psychically. Or if it's a photograph of somebody living, then again, you can look at the photo. They're smiling, they look a vibrant person, they're wearing bright clothes. Yeah, you can, cold reading is to say, oh, they're a really outgoing, friendly person. People like them, but you can see all of that in the photograph. Or they were loud, they were brash, they were fun. You can see that in the photograph by what they're wearing. A lot of it, that's what I call cold reading. But what you want to do is, okay, that's a photo. That's a person we're working with. Now I want to touch the energy of my sitter to understand their relationship with them and who they were and how they were from their energy. It is very hard for beginners or even intermediates to get a heck of a lot of information from a photo because the mechanism of reading a photo is hard. When we're working, we're getting information psychically and we're getting information mediumistically. When you hold a photo, yes, you can psychometrize it, but generally you're psychometrizing the energy of the person who last held it. You're talking about the person who brought it and gave it to you. So some people will argue, yeah, you can tune in to the universal consciousness and pick up information about that person. But that's not so easy to do, nor easy to train to anybody. So, but what's much easier is to move into the energy of your sitter or recipient, the person who brought you the photo, and to see and to get the information from them. But for me, the worst exercises of all that I do not recommend you do is when people post a photograph to Facebook and say, tell me about this person still living. If they're still living, you've got no source of information to get it from other than the picture, other than cold reading that picture. Technically, you could ask for someone in the spirit world who links to them to blend with you to give you information. That's possible. But if the person's not there, whose photo it is, you can't psychically link in to get the information from them neither. So reading photographs psychically is not a good experience. It's not an easy thing to do. It generally won't help you. And similarly, when someone posts somebody, here's a photograph of somebody, tell me what you get. But you're putting it out to thousands of people. Are you really expecting that spirit to go and link individually with thousands of people? It's not going to happen easily. Whereas for me, I would much rather it be done on a one-on-one basis or a very small group basis. I've done it myself in small groups of maybe up to 12 people, but I would not post it for a whole huge audience. I think that's too much. And also, everybody who gets information needs to get feedback. What I tend to do is, if I was to do a class and give a photograph of someone in spirit, I'm asking everyone to link to that person and get information. And what I would do is get everybody to give me what they get, and then I write it all down. I don't say a word. I don't say what's right, what's wrong, what's not. So when 10 people have told me what they've all got, I've written it all down, and then I'll tell you what's right. Because guess what happens? If the first person says, I feel this as dad, and I say yes, and I feel he was this, that, and the other, and I say yes, the next people change what they've got. Oh, no, I got your dad, and oh, yeah, I got that as well. And they didn't, but they've heard it's right, so they'll give it. So therefore, if nobody knows what's right and what's not, then we can actually accurately go through everyone's evidence without anybody taking from anybody else or being led by what's said. So hopefully that all helps. So I hope that helps you with understanding photograph reading. Some people listening to this may not agree with me, and that's okay. If what I say resonates, brilliant. If it doesn't, that's fine. Sarah K, thanks so much. Really like the idea of analysing our own mediumship, and yes, as well as developing selves as a channel. Chick flicks not my thing, but if it's homework, if clairsentience, you want that, it can be a good tool. Anything that has powerful emotions within it that can help you feel that emotion is a good tool. Absolutely. I often say people should develop healing as well as developing mediumship. For another reason is that it will help you to become more attuned to people. It will help you to become more compassionate, and it will help that emotional part to rise to the surface a bit more. So I highly recommend developing healing as well as developing mediumship. And I developed mine both in parallel. I started developing them both at the same time back in 2001, 2002. Okay, next question. Jane, I'm okay with evidence, but the medium in our circle really encourages us to give a heartfelt message from the loved one in spirit. I really struggle to find a message. Is it okay just to give evidence? But the big problem you've got with working with spirit is everybody now wants a message. Everybody expects a message. So yeah, give the evidence, but they'll all be saying, where's my message? A lot of people want a message and aren't bothered about the evidence. It's like, oh yeah, I know that is, oh, just give me the message. Why are they here? Well, tell me about me. A lot of people want psychic stuff, not spirit, which is sad. In the olden days, a lot of the old mediums used to just give the evidence, and the evidence was enough. They're demonstrating life after death, and the evidence is enough. There doesn't need to be messages. Gordon Higginson, he very rarely gave messages. Similarly with Estelle Roberts, Helen Hughes. If you look at verbatim accounts of their mediumship, you'll see there was a great deal of information about the spirit person, but very little messages. But of course, we're in a different era now. People expect it. So you do need to work on the message as the answer. But the thing is, it shouldn't always necessarily be a heartfelt message, because sometimes spirit just come through because they can. They come through to say hello. They don't come through with the most powerful, all singing, all dancing, healing message. That's not always necessary. It depends upon the person, depends upon the relationship, depends on so many different things. Yes, it's wonderful when you can bring that most profound, beautiful, healing message, but it's the exception to the rule, not the norm. When I'm working, often the message are just about, they've not been through for a while and they're happy to connect. But generally, there's more to it as well. Often I find what I like to get personally is message within the evidence. That if we allow spirit to deliver whatever evidence they want to bring, I talk about this in great detail in my course, Getting Better Evidence. I talk about how you move from working with questions in the early days to building a framework that allows spirit complete freedom to be able to bring you whatever evidence they want, and for that evidence to piece together into powerful messages. So that course goes into it in a great deal of detail, how you can get powerful messages. But I often find that in my own mediumship that it builds up. I don't really need, by the time I've finished doing a link, I don't really need to say what the message is, because it's already become pretty clear. It's already started to unfold. And sometimes what I see different bits of evidence. They stand out, they're highlighted, and I know, or I kind of feel a push. This piece of information is coming through. There was a man around them who was always arguing. Then I just feel it pushed to the sitter. And I know there's a scenario around the sitter and the sitter's family at the moment where something similar is happening. And the person fought it, and they were always rowing, and really they're coming to say that they wish they'd just mellowed out a little bit, and they wish they'd learned to get along with people and not be so stubborn and not fight every single problem. And that is a message in itself. But then when we move to what's the message for the person here, well, actually, there's a lot of argument going on. There's a lot of issues, and you're both knocking heads. And the message that spirit brought through of they wish they'd been like that is how they would like you to be. They'd like you not to fight everything. They'd like you just to go with the flow a bit more. That's kind of thing I'm talking about when we build up the message within the evidence. Often we get a piece of information that can be used as a powerful message at the end as well. I talk about all of that. It's hard. I'm trying to think of giving a good example you can give. Okay, so the other day I was working with a gentleman, and he had a complete cabinet full of wonderful malt whiskies. He loved malt whiskey. He kept the best for himself and nobody else. So I'm telling the person this, he loves malt whiskey. He's got a huge cabinet. Yeah. He kept the best malt whiskies. Yeah. If anyone ever came around, including you, you'd always get given a very poor quality thing, and you'd know full well he's got some nice stuff around the back. You're never going to see, oh yeah. Well, his message is, he wished he'd shared the good stuff with you. He wished he'd been more generous, and he's now giving you a bottle of his finest whiskey, and he now wants to enjoy it with you. So it's kind of evidence we've got, but within that evidence of holding things back, there's a regret that he wanted to give more. So yeah, that's just some examples. So I hope that helps. Okay, next question. Laura, my father came through when I had a reading. He left when I was 2 and made our life harder. I need apology from him. Can I ask him? You can send any thoughts you'd like to your father. And the thing is, think about it. If you're giving a reading to somebody who's been badly hurt by somebody who would like an apology, Do we think spirit would know that? And I would argue that spirit absolutely would know that. Are spirit in a position to give that apology? I would absolutely argue that yes, they are, because they're coming forward. And spirit come forward to create healing. They never come forward to create problems. If anyone ever brings you a contact from the spirit world and they come forward and they say, I didn't like you when I was here and I definitely don't like you now. No, it'll never happen. Healing by its true nature is healing. It's helpful. It's beneficial. If somebody wanted to come forward with a message that was negative, the guides, the helpers, those who facilitate mediumship wouldn't allow it. So all messages from spirit, in my experience, are positive. I've never come across one yet that isn't. I've seen people give them where it's not positive, but that often they're giving evidence as messages, which is wrong. So this person's difficult. This person loved to argue everybody. That's how they were. That's the evidence. It's not who they are now, for sure. But if you say, oh, they want to argue with you, they don't like you. No. You've taken the evidence they've shown you as them here upon the earth, and you're projecting it into a message that doesn't exist. So we've got to be careful we don't do that with messages as well. Absolutely. But send the thoughts out to your loved one. Send your thoughts to him. If he's able to, can he do so? And then you need a medium, remember, who's open to the emotion, who's open to the message, and can bring it through. I was working last week and a lady came up to talk to me afterwards, and she said that the loved one I'd brought through had been through many, many times before and never brought through the apology that she needed, that should have come. And it was just so profoundly healing for her. And she said also, you got so much information, so much accurate evidence that I absolutely knew she was there. The other mediums who were working didn't really give me enough for me to know it was her. It may not have been her. It may have been not quite there. But what we're seeking to do is seeking to get a good link with spirit, then seeking to allow spirit to communicate and to surrender to that communication, to keep us out of it, to allow whatever needs to be said in the moment to be said. Obviously, we have to do that in a public domain through tact as well, a tact filter. In a sitting, we can give what really needs to be said without worrying about what anybody else is thinking. But again, that's also part of my Getting Better Evidence course, where I talk about giving the message, where I talk about how we learn to surrender, where I talk about how we're seeking ultimately to become spirit, to allow them to work through us, for their personality to become evident to the sitter. That's what we want, for their personality to touch the recipient in a dem. Absolutely. It takes time. Don't expect it in an instant. There's a lot of steps we've got to put in place, a lot of foundations we've got to put in place for that to develop. And some people, it may be hard to get that far with your mediumship, but if you work with it systematically, you can certainly move in that direction for sure. So I hope that makes sense. But yeah, definitely, if you've got loved ones who you'd like to hear from, send those thoughts. But what I would say as well is I would offer the olive branch as well. The more you can understand perhaps from their perspective, the easier it will be for them to come. Some people are very reluctant to come forward because they're not sure how they're going to be taken, and they fear rejection as well, that the person's going to send them away. That's one of the saddest things of all. When we work as mediums and we bring someone forward who we can feel has got a true heartfelt apology to give, and the person says, no, I hated them when they were here, I do not want to hear from them, don't want them in my life, I said I'd never have them in my life, send them away. And then we got to say to spirit, I'm really sorry, we've tried for you tonight, but they won't accept it, so I'm sorry, but I hope you can do it again, communicate at some stage in the future. It's sad, but that's the way it is. So if you're enjoying this, don't forget, hit the like button. If you've not subscribed to the channel, do subscribe to the channel. If you would like to get your question answered next, you can always use Super Chat, make a small donation. I'll get onto it next. If you'd like to support the channel, you can use Super Chat. You can use Super Thanks if you're watching this on the replay. You can also use PayPal Me. There's a link that pops along the ticker on the bottom of the screen every now and again. Okay, next question. Linda. Sometimes we're not even trying. I get full messages to pass on to someone. Then when trying to read, I sometimes only get a few words. Why do you think this is? Now, that's a hard one. I don't know. It's not something I'm familiar with in terms of my own experience or those students I've worked with a great deal. So again, it's kind of, I would need more information as well, because normally we would normally get the most when you're sitting to do your psychic or mediumistic readings. Sometimes people, when we start in the early days, we're ever so excited to do things that we try and do things at inopportune times, when we're stood in the bus queue or when we're going through the checkout at the till and you're trying to give the cashier a link from their mum or dad. I always say it's always got to be strict discipline. Only give it at the appropriate time, when someone expects a reading, when somebody is happy to receive a reading, when somebody is in the right place for it. Don't give things, don't just phone someone up randomly and saying, oh, you popped in my head, I'm going to give you a reading now, because hang on, they've not asked for it. So be very careful when you give readings. I'm not saying you're doing that, but I know a lot of people who may be listening to this may have experienced that. So I'd say when trying to do it, that's the right time to do it. But if there's pressure when you're trying to do it, again, too much pressure upon you, too much stress can flatten it, makes it hard. You may find that when there's no pressure, that's when it's happening. And that's a sign to you that you've got to learn to deal with the anxiety or the pressure or whatever it is. There's always clues in all of it. I always say to everybody, whenever they bring me a problem, what I always say to you is go away, sit and meditate on it, and open to the inspiration from spirit and your own soul. So if you've got a challenge with your mediumship, if you've got a challenge like this, just go away and quietly meditate with it and ask to be given insight and understanding into what's happening. And you'll often get little flashes appear, whether that's from your own soul, whether that's from spirit. And they will generally give you the best answers than somebody who's trying to second guess it, like me. From a few words in your question, it's hard for me to try and analyze it, second guess it, and give you the right answer. So it's a very hard question to answer. So I've done my best, but you may want to go and sit and open to your own inspiration. Okay, Sherry. Oh, we have another super chat. Let's go into that one. Larry, are you able to give personal feedback to your students in the study program, and do you offer private readings? Good questions. So at the moment, I'm not doing readings at the moment. As I mentioned at the beginning, I've got other things I'm trying to focus upon and get done right now at this moment in time. So at the moment, I'm not currently offering private readings. With the study program, I don't give personal feedback. If someone's, say, in training with me in the church, in my own home church, I take classes and there as well. And if someone's in training with me, I will give them some feedback for sure. If I see if they came on platform working with me, I see them working on platform, I will give them feedback. But it's very hard to give feedback to people when you don't see them work. And with the study program, it's primarily theoretical, so it's challenging to give that kind of feedback. I've had other people come and have readings with me and want feedback on how they're working. And again, it's hard. It's hard. I say the best people to give you feedback is those people who are watching you work practically. That's what I would say look out for. And a lot of people want feedback to be told how wonderful they are. They want feedback to be told that they're going to be rich, they're going to be famous. And if that's what people are looking for, they're never going to get that from me, I'm afraid. I guess I still have some of the old school mediums within me. When I give really good praise and feedback, it's rare. And people go, it means something. It means something. And that's how it should be, I believe. But having said that, I've been in my own journey. I've been given negative feedback by people, and that upsets me. So I know many mediums who've been destroyed by feedback as well. People telling them they can't do it, telling them they're no good, telling them they shouldn't be doing it. No, not fair, not good. So be careful. Feedback is a double-edged sword. I always say that to people. It's a double-edged sword. Be careful who you ask, and also can you handle it when you get to it. If people ask for honest feedback when I watch them work, I'll give it. But sometimes they're not always able to constructively take it on board. Normally, I will tell them what works. I will tell them areas for improvement. But generally, people don't. Some people focus on the negatives. They will not listen to the positives. They'll just go to the negatives. And other people will totally ignore the areas for constructive improvement, and they'll just go to the positives. Whereas what we need is the balance of all of it. That's what matters. So hopefully that makes sense, but sorry I can't help in that regards. So Sherry, connecting to spirit in early development, the images information feels faint, fleeting. What do you recommend during practice on how to blend or obtain a stronger connection to the spirit? Thank you. So again, it's all about your connection to spirit. In the early days, it is that little bit harder, I agree. If you're not as well connected. So I don't know if you were here in the class I was talking about connecting to spirit. But basically, I have a video, Mediumship Class 3, Connecting to Spirit. I go through all the different tools, techniques you can use in there for connecting. But sitting in the power is a very useful tool to learn to blend and hold the link with spirit. You need the power, which is the fuel for mediumship, to be able to sustain your links. What happens is people can connect and get some information, then it all just falls off. And that's lack of power. Or they haven't trained their mind to blend with spirit, hold it to spirit. When they move away, go back. And that's what I train people to do, is sit in the power. We make that link, we blend with spirit, we stay connected. And then when we think about something on TV, or think about, has anyone fed me cat? And we've lost the link, we go back and rebuild it, and we go back and link. And when I'm working on platform, something may happen in the room. Somebody may burst through the doors and, oh no, I've lost my link. I've got to go back and rebuild it. Or I'm working, someone's phone rings and it moves you a bit out the link. You've got to go back and rebuild it. That's exactly how it is. You're doing a sitting and there's a disruption and you've got to go back and rebuild the link. So we have to train ourselves to do that. Sitting in the power, the things for connecting as well. So also focus upon what you're getting right. If you find that things are starting to get weak in the link, go back to the bits you got right. Repeat the bits you got right. Help to strengthen it again. Feel into it. A lot of it is about, we have to feel into it and we have to know when we're connected well and when we're not. But it comes through, it really does come through practice as well. It's very hard to teach somebody how to do mediumship without practice. I can give you all the theory in all the world, but you've got to go put that theory into practice. And then ultimately you have to do work on self. You've got to see what's working for you. And you've got to understand your own mediumship. Self-development will take you far further than anything else. So I hope that helps in some way. But accept that in the early stages, it is faint and fleeting. When you think about it, it's when we develop our sensitivity that things become stronger to us. We're trying to experience things that normal people are not aware of, would never be aware of. We're trying to heighten our sensitivity. And one of the best tools of heightening your sensitivity is to sit in the presence of spirit. Because when you're sitting blended with spirit, all those abilities within you will unfold in that environment. It's odd. It's like you sit there thinking nothing's happening, but a lot's happening. No time spent in the presence of spirit is ever wasted. When we sit, we're allowing the potentials within us to unfold. You don't have to be working with it for it to unfold. You're just creating that time and blending with spirit, and you're allowing your own guides and helpers to get to know you, the channel, the medium. And together it will work better. So I hope that all makes sense. Okay, now Laura, how do you get a tune before a reading? Did I answer? I think I answered that earlier on. I hope I did anyway. But basically, attuning to spirit is setting the intent. For me, when I'm going to work doing mediumship, whether it's a sitting, whether it's platform, the way I attune to spirit is I set my intent. First of all, I set my intent to attune, and then I do what I do is sit in the power. I move my mind and I blend with the spirit world and I invite them to be with me. And that's it. That's how I attune. And yes, there's all sorts of techniques we can use. We can use visualizations. We can use the power of our breathing. We can use affirmations. In the early stages, all of those are helpful. But with experience, all of that begins to disappear because you don't need it. With experience, once you've learned to attune, you do it. When you're driving, you do a lot of it by rote. You know what you're doing and you do it. If I try to get you to explain how you change a stick shift gear in a car to somebody, it's very complicated, but you just do it. It's the same with mediumship. The attunement, we learn it. Once we've learned it and we've learned it well, we don't really need to go through the stages and steps and all the stages and steps in that procedure. We just do it. So hopefully that helps. So how to connect to spirit. Connecting to spirit video, mediumship class 3, fundamentals of mediumship's online course covers it all, as well as does module 1 of the study program. The study program is a 4-module course. Modules 1 to 3 all build upon each other. Let me show you on the screen, just in case you're wondering what that is. Let's get the study program, that would help. So there's 4 modules. Module 1, foundations. Module 2, mechanics. Module 3, working with mediumship. The 4th one is standalone on healing, inspiration, trance, guides and helpers. But the modules 1, 2 and 3 work systematically and build on each other and give a great deal of teaching. Each module is 10 classes lasting for about 2 hours each, maybe longer. And we go for each module, there's a tutorial that answers about 30 questions on each module. So say private sittings, I teach all about private sittings. Then the people who watched that class came back to me with numerous questions, and I present to you 30 questions I was asked about it as well. So most of the frequently asked questions are in that study program for sure. I also give different exercises you can use to help you with mediumship. And also, if you want to keep class notes and send them to me afterwards, then certification is also available. But I need to see the notes to prove that you've worked through the material. So if certification sounds of interest, that's the only program I offer certification for. But I think that is valuable. So that's the study program if you're interested in it. Denise, thank you very much. That helped a lot. I'm glad. Heidi, how do you keep the link very well? I find my mind wanders. How do you stop your mind wandering? Discipline. How do you learn discipline of the mind? Meditation. How do you learn meditation? What's the best meditation for learning discipline of the mind? Yeah, you get bored of the same story, don't you? I bring you back to meditations like sitting in the power, where you attune, hold the connection. When you drop it, you go back, you rebuild it. So if your mind wanders, discipline, straight back into it. If you're losing the link because of lack of power, you need to build more power. If you're losing the link because of distractions, you need to get back on it. If you're losing the link because you've got bored, you're in the wrong job. But I have heard some people say, oh, it was boring. It's like, how can it be? You're linking with the unseen world. It's amazing. It's fantastic. It's miraculous. Absolutely. But generally, I find that we all have a certain amount of power. We can only all work for so long. We're looking to build that stamina and that power to make our work last as long as possible. Most mediums, after about an hour and a half, their energy begins to drop and they struggle. And that's experienced working mediums. But beginners, maybe their length of time they can work for is 5 minutes. Build it up to 10, then 15, then 20, 25, 30. And so it goes. It's like running. The more you do it, the more experience you get at it, the more stamina you get, the further you can go. Hopefully that all makes sense. Your next point, people also want names and ages. The thing is, people might want names and ages, but you don't always have to give them. What you need to give people is sufficient information that they recognize their loved ones. Sufficient information that they know who you've got. Sometimes if I give you Dad, who was a postman, does it matter if I don't give you Dad's name? I don't give you Dad's age. And how do you get age anyway? Do you see the age written within your mind? 72. Do you hear it in your ear? 72. Do you get shown somebody who you knew who was nearly 72? Or do you feel the energy of the person and try and guess from their energy how old they feel? Do you get a glimpse of them in your mind and try and guess their age? Now, if I've done exercises in classes where we try and guess somebody's age, and it's fun. You've got huge error bars. You know, someone may be 40, someone may guess them as 30, other people at 55. You've got these huge error bars. You try to guess an age from getting a glimpse of someone in your mind's eye. It's hard. So how do we get an age? How do you get a name? Names are really challenging. Do you see the name written out? Are you shown somebody with the same name? Do you hear the name within your mind? Does the name surface into your mind? These are all techniques for getting names, but for me, getting names is advanced mediumship. Getting names is not beginner's mediumship. Very few people can get names straight off the bat. I occasionally in a dem will give names and they'll say that's their name. And that's lovely. You know, a name comes in very strongly. Charles, yes, that's his name. Great. Or you get a surname, Jameson. Does that mean something? Yes. That's the name. That's a family name. It's not his name, but it's his family name. Okay. But they're not easy to get. It's not all the time. It's rare. Majority of the time, I don't give masses amount of names. Most mediums I see working don't give huge amount of names. Some do, but I see a huge miss rate. I see some mediums throw a lot of names out and they'll hit strikes with 30, 40%. But 60, 70%, they're just getting blanks. It's not understood. That's not accurate because the majority of names you're given is not taken. I would say don't give them. Ideally, when you get a name, we'd like you to know where the name fits. Is the person here? Are they in spirit? Is it a first name of somebody, a surname? Where is it a street name? Where does it fit? And, you know, I would love to be able to got this lady here. She shows me her sister. They had a great relationship. They were like peas in a pod. And her sister's name is Mary. Yes. Now that's good. That's good evidence. As opposed to just saying, does the name Mary fit somewhere, somehow, some way? And if they're from Ireland, I'll guarantee they can take it. If they're from Ireland, it's how many Marys are there in the family, or variants on Marie, Myrie, etc. That's if you work in there, that's what you got to be doing for sure. So yeah, you answered my question. More meditation. Absolutely. Meditation is very useful. If you're not doing meditation, you're giving yourself a bigger mountain to climb for your mediumship for sure. Mag, how do we know if we're bringing the genuine evidence mediumistically or psychically giving the evidence? So I do have a video on my channel called Is It Psychic or Is It From Spirit? And I talk about this exact question. And I give it probably a good 10 to 15 minutes of my time. So I'm going to point you there and I'm going to give you a very brief potted overview now, because I'm not going to be able to drill into that degree of detail, nor can I remember everything I said in the past, because whenever I do a video, I think about it, I make notes, I try and cover it all, go through it all in a systematic, logical way. Generally, wherever your focus is where you're more likely to be getting information from. So if you've held a link with spirit and you're focused with spirit and you're focused on spirit, that's where the evidence is coming from. If you move into the energy of your sitter and you're focused upon your sitter or the recipient, then generally that's where the information is going to be coming from. So wherever your focus is. So whenever I'm doing mediumship, I generally don't want information from the sitter or the recipient, and I want it all from the spirit world. My spirit link isn't necessarily above, but I often do a diagram where the spirit link goes up and then with the person we're linking to here is kind of in front of us. So I don't want anything from them. I want it all from spirit. I'm holding my link with spirit, and that's where the information comes from. And then when it's time for the message, I'll open psychically to the person, because generally when we go for the message, it's a mixture of psychic and spirit. And generally getting them both together makes for a more powerful, profound message. Spirit may be talking about there's an issue around the person here. But when you open psychically, you can psychically feel what the issue is and get more information on it. So spirit are talking about the issue, but you're psychically picking it up. You can mesh the two together and talk about it in more detail than if you try and get it all from spirit. So psychic is really helpful for the message. But if we're working mediumistically, it's not so beneficial, because when we start talking about things that are happening with the sitter and mixing it with spirit, it becomes challenging. Hopefully that all helps. So, and then secondly, often when we're working psychically versus mediumistically, there's a change takes place. We may be quicker psychically or slower psychically. We may be quicker mediumistically or slower mediumistically. So again, you've got to watch for the changes taking place. I can't say that change means that, because everyone's different. So, it depends where your comfort zone is. Some people love working the psychic and that's their comfort zone. And others love working with spirit and that's their comfort zone. Personally, I love being with spirit more than I'd love working psychically. That's my excitement, is being with spirit. So hopefully that helps. Judith, thank you very much for your super chat. How do you deal with overwhelming gratitude from a sitter? The same as you would deal with any such issue in your life. Just thank them for it. Accept it. Don't get a massive ego and a big head and go and publish all over the internet as to how fabulous you are. Yeah, sometimes it depends on your personality. Some people get very embarrassed with praise as well. But whenever somebody says to me, "That was amazing. Thank you so much. You're brilliant," I'll say it's teamwork. It's your loved one was able to work very well today, and the team that worked behind the scenes in the spirit world, they did too. It's not just me. I'm just the person giving the information. It's all been created through a team in spirit, and the person doing the communication is doing their part. And if it's all worked well, I'm grateful that it's worked well. I appreciate your gratitude, but I'm not all going to have it for me. I'm going to share it around a bit. I think that's good. That's fair. And I always know that the other thing is no matter how people tell me I'm brilliant, there will always be somebody who's not happy. I did what I thought was a fabulous demonstration in a church. I had some really great evidence, some really good links. I was really pleased. I thought, I've done well tonight. Sat down, and two ladies just sat behind me. That church, you sit at the front and have a cup of tea. And there's two ladies sat behind. One said very loudly to the one, "I didn't think much of the medium tonight." The other says, no, he was rubbish, wasn't he? And the other lady said, he just kept going on about dead people. He just kept giving us information about dead people. And then the penny dropped. They're here for a psychic reading. They're not here to hear from loved ones. Me doing a very good job of mediumship and bringing loved ones to life and sharing loved ones' stories with the audience and reconnecting people who genuinely want to be reconnected, and that profound healing it brings was not of interest to that audience. Some of those people, they just wanted to be told, "Oh, you're lovely, you're going to be doing this next week or that week next week, and you're going to meet Mr. Right." They just want psychic mediumship, or just messages that are not even psychic. Just, throwaway messages. We can't always do that. So whenever someone gives me great praise, great gratitude, I'm always willing to take it, thank it. But I'm aware that it probably won't be long before somebody else says something that's not. Take the rough with the smooth. But don't expect it as well, because I know some mediums who work for the praise and they're desperate for the praise. And that's not why we do it. We do the work quietly, sacredly. And if we get praise, that's nice. But if we don't, it doesn't matter. But I do understand what you mean. Sometimes when people have overwhelming gratitude, it can be hard to deal with. I get that. I see that. For sure. Laura, I can see you've made a super chat. That is greatly appreciated. Do you have a question to go with it? Let me just have a look. Can't see another question that goes with it, but I appreciate your super chat anyway. If you are enjoying it, remember, hit the like button. If you're watching it on the replay, hit the like. Do subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed, and you'll get notification of all my videos. You've got to hit the notification bell to get those notifications. YouTube doesn't naturally send them out unless you're interacting with my channel all the time. So the more you interact, the more you're likely to get. But if you don't want to do that, just hit the notification bell. You'll get them all anyway. So Madaleaf, question, names from another country is very difficult. Yes, it is. It's easier for spirit to give us anything that we've got within our own knowledge, within our own mind, within our own understanding. Whatever's within our own understanding is easier to give than things that aren't. Complicated foreign names is very hard to give, because if you want to give me a name of somebody I know, you can flash me an image of that person. You can flash me someone famous with that name. But if the name is complex and it's not a name I know, it's a foreign name, you can't do that. How can you get it? You can try and you could say it into my head, but whether I can get that or not, very few people have that degree of clairaudience. You could start trying to write the letters out for me. M-A-R-G-H-E-R. No, G-E-R-U-I. And we're just trying to piece together this name, trying to get it to appear, and it's not always easy. So yeah, I get that. It is difficult. Very few mediums can do foreign names brilliantly. Gordon Higginson could, because he was clairaudient and he heard it and he had to repeat it. He's phonetically repeating what he's hearing. He doesn't have to be able to spell it, write it, none of that. Just be able to say it and give it. So hopefully that makes sense. Okay, what questions have I missed? Madaleaf, some loved ones come through after a few days after passing and some after a few years. Do you know why? So again, I have another video on the channel. Why has my loved one not come through? And how soon can spirit come through? 2 videos. First one, how soon can spirit come through? And I talk about what the reasons it takes some a little while to come through. And the second video is people say, well, they've not been through for several years. Why is this? And I go through great detail why. They kind of both fit together very, very well. Quite simply, people who go to the spirit world need time to adjust. To be able to work through a medium, they have to also be trained to do it. So those who have an understanding of this work are able to communicate much more quickly than those who don't. Also, is it the right time for them to communicate? What state is the sitter in? How easily is the sitter able to deal with it? And they will know that, and they may hold back if they don't feel the sitter's in a good place. Also, do they want to communicate? Are they in the right place to communicate? Are they available to communicate? And more importantly, is the medium a good fit for them? Because I have something I call the radio analogy. This is the radio analogy. So with the radio analogy, we've got increasing vibration up here. So this is the spirit world from this straight line here. So it's broken into 3 parts. Long wave, medium wave, short wave, because long wave has longer waves, medium wave shorter, short waves even shorter still. So that's increasing vibration. The idea is that beginners can only get so far into the spirit world. If you like, they can only do 1 band. An intermediate, they can get further in, and a highly experienced medium can do a lot more of it, maybe all of it, who knows. I don't think everybody can do all of it, to be honest, even experienced mediums. So the point is, if it's like a radio, and each spirit has its own wavelength, frequency it transmits upon, then basically each medium has this area they work in. And if that spirit is not in that area, it becomes very hard for them to work. So sometimes a medium will work and the person will say, can you get somebody for me? And they can't. It just doesn't work because they're not a good vibrational match. They're not a good fit. They're not on the right wavelength. So the medium's got to be on the right wavelength as well. So that's another factor in the mix. How experienced is the medium? How wide an area can they cover? And when someone's not quite there, what happens is like tuning in a radio badly. You'll get bits of information come in, but you're not really connected. And it's not a good solid connection. It's just bitty. And we don't really want that. So also we've got to look at the belief system of the person in spirit. Did they believe mediumship to be bad, mediumship to be wrong? They're not going to instantly change that in a second when they get to the spirit world. They're going to take some time to understand and to move beyond that. So I know some people who have quite strong, profound religious beliefs who will take time before they come through a medium because they need to, if you like, they need to be re-educated. They need to let those beliefs dampen down and dissipate away. But generally, in my experience, those who are aware or familiar with this are able to do it quicker. Myself, I brought through people within the hour who've passed literally an hour ago and they're there. And they say, I've just took a phone call that they passed and they're coming through. I brought people through just before they've passed as well. Because when we start to move to that point of transition, the soul becomes freed from the body as well, so it can function in the spirit world. And if you like, you can operate in 2 worlds. So that's another question I have a video on. Can a medium link with the living? And I talk about how it's possible to connect with someone close to death. But similarly, we can also connect with people in a coma, and we can also connect with people who've got advanced dementia, Alzheimer's, because yet again, I believe that the brain, the mind is not constrained, the mind is not restricted to this physical body. The mind can operate beyond it. It's given permission to operate beyond it. You're not trapped in a prison of the body. So if those videos interest you, I will put links to them in the comments and description below. Generally, it takes me a little while to, I have to do some editing of the live stream and I add all that on generally within a day or so. So the links may not be totally up to date, but come back after a day or so and you should get them. Heidi, should connecting be immediately done? I tend to get impatient. How long should it take you to connect to spirit? With experience, it should take 10, 20 seconds with experience. But if you're not that experienced, it can take longer. But if you're having to wait 2 or 3 minutes for getting a connection to spirit, it's too long. Remember, I always talk about it like, it's like your power is your petrol for the car, and you're connecting to spirit. That's the ignition. That's the spark that gets the engine going. And that is an excited thing. You need to get empowered, excited, energized. It's really exciting. It's woof. It's like lighting the, if you were to put some petrol on a fire and throw a match on it, woof. That's the connection. Then how long does it take for the information to come through? Remember, you're going to ask for one person to blend with you. You're going to ask for information about them to be received. And then you'll start getting them information. Is it a man or a woman? Tell me about yourself. Who are you? Give me information so I can get you recognized. So if you don't understand any of that part, do check out my video called How to Practice Mediumship, where I talk you through what you should be doing. But generally, you should start to be building information up within, 30 seconds, a minute. You should have a reasonable bit to give. Got a man here, feel he's very close family link. He's got a problem with his breathing, his chest. There was a sudden passing at the end. Yeah, that's what we're looking for. But I get that in the early stages, if you're a complete beginner, that may be hard, for sure. So yeah, you've got to be patient, but you've got to make sure you're connecting well. That's the other key thing. So I hope that helps. Fleming, have you read some of the Allan Kardec books? And if so, what is your opinion on his teaching? So I do have 1 or 2 Allan Kardec books. I have tried to read them, but to be honest, it doesn't resonate well with me. So I've not got into it in a great deal of detail. So I've got so many books I'm trying to read. Like many of you, I probably have several hundred waiting to be read. So the Allan Kardec ones don't truly resonate with me. So I can't really go into his teaching in detail, I'm afraid. Mainly because I've only skimmed parts of them. So sorry about that. If I had read them, I could give you an opinion, but I can't. Lowry, are your meditations included in the study program or are they separate? So within the study program, you receive mediumship class 2. Mediumship class 2 within the middle of it has the sitting in the power version stripped down. It's not entirely dissimilar to the free version that is available on YouTube, but the full version, you do need to buy it if you're buying the classes, because but you asked about the study program. Now, the study program itself does not include the meditation. So that would be an extra £11 purchase. But the course that I do, the meditation and sitting for spirit course, that one does include sitting in the power, and it does include the what I call sit in the power Mark 2, and 2 other meditations as well. The Rainbow Journey meditation, that one is only available standalone. It's not included in any course, I'm afraid. So generally, unless you're buying meditation and sitting for spirit course, you don't get the meditation sitting in the power. But it is only £11, so it's not a large price to pay to get it. As I say, there is a version of it included within class 2. So if you wanted to, you could go to that point in class 2 and play it forward from that point to get a version of it. So it is to a degree, but not as a standalone full version. Hope that makes sense. Laura, for my previous questions, thank you. You're very welcome. My pleasure. Philippa, what is the best advice you can give to improve mediumship? That is a massive question, isn't it? What is the best advice I can give to improve mediumship? I think I can see a video. We'll have to film on that one. One of my future videos, how to improve your mediumship. The logical things is get teaching, get practice. But you've got to also work with your own mediumship as well. You've got to understand your own mediumship. You've got to understand how your own mind works. You've got to watch and monitor it. A lot of it is self-development. I will throw into the mix as well. Of course, you've got to do sitting in the power as well to improve your mediumship. I know some people whose mediumship was just average in their development. And then I met them a couple of months later and it was like, wow, step change. And I'd say, what do you do? And, I just decided to sit in the power regularly, sit for spirit daily. Whoa, it makes that big a difference. That's amazing. Everyone's looking for the magic bullet, what can I do that's going to make me instantly fabulous? And I think there is nothing that makes massive step changes, but there are things that will improve you, but it's all incremental improvements. I know in my own case that I would go to the Arthur Findlay College and be with certain tutors, see them regularly, say a year apart, and they say to me, oh, you've come along a huge amount in the last year. And I'm like, have I? I just think I'm working the same, because with the small changes, we're not aware of it. It's like the frog that you boil a frog in a pan just by gently turning the temperature up, because it's not aware of the changes. Not a very good example, I'm sure, especially to the frog. But you get what I'm saying. What I'm trying to say to you is when we improve small increments, we don't always notice it. If we get quicker at getting information, we don't always notice it because it's not like a huge step change. We generally notice the huge step changes. One of the videos on my channel said, why is your mediumship getting worse? 7 reasons why your mediumship is getting worse. And generally all of it is not your mediumship getting worse. It's just changing and you not understanding or noticing the changes and thinking the changes are worse, not seeing the benefits you're getting from them. If you've not seen that video, I do highly recommend it. Again, I shall put a link to it in the comments and description within the next day or so. So I hope that all makes sense. But yeah, how do you improve mediumship? It's a huge thing. It's a huge topic. Keep trying. Keep trying. Don't ever feel you've arrived. It's a journey. Walk the journey. Enjoy the journey. Get excited about the journey. Don't be rushing to the next destination. Enjoy every step of it. But don't be in a rush neither. If you drive down all the highways and motorways, you'll miss all the back roads with all the excitement on them. So you don't want to rush it. Sometimes I think a lot of people rush their mediumship too much and they miss out on opportunities to develop more as they go. A lot of people want to be on platform or doing readings. When you're working, doing mediumship and professionally, there's less room for experimentation. Your experimentation is when you're in practice circles. Your experimentation is when you're on courses. Your experimentation is when you're just doing it without the pressure of having a client or having high expectations of an audience on you. It's very hard for me just to try different things in demonstrations and sittings because there's too much expectation there. That's what you do in your practice time. I think a lot of people rush that practice sometimes too much to get to the destination of being a working medium without realizing it's important to keep that part of it going as well. So I hope that makes sense. Absolutely. We should all be seeking to be better. If I'm not a better medium next year than where I am now, then something's wrong, because nobody, no matter what level they ever get to, ever stops improving. Gordon Higginson, with all the experience he had, he started working as a medium aged 12. He stopped obviously when he passed to spirit aged 74. So he worked for a good 62 years. And even in his later years, he still said that what he knows you could fit on the head of a pin, and there's always so much more to learn, always so much more to unfold, almost so much more to develop. We should all be striving to be better in the future than we are now. Absolutely. Okay, Mag, I'm going to make this the last question. Is it true that the spirit don't tell us what to do when they come through? It is the medium that's telling the recipient their opinion, I heard. What do you think? Spirit can tell us what they want, what they would like us to do, but like anybody's opinion, it's their opinion, So I've done a sitting where I brought through a lady came for a sitting with me, and in the course of the sitting, it became clear she had this fabulous job opportunity to go and work abroad. So her mum came through, and her mum was wanting her not to do it. It's high risk, don't do it. And her mum's personality was someone who always played it safe, someone who loved the home environment, someone who didn't take risks. And then her friend who was in the spirit world, one of her close friends who'd passed to spirit, came through and said what a fabulous opportunity it is and how she'd be crazy not to take it and how it opened so many doors. And the lady said to me afterwards, well, how does that work? 2 different spirits gave 2 different opinions. I said, if you went to your mum when she was still living and told her about this new job opportunity, what would you say? Said, yeah, she'd probably say, yeah, be careful taking it. Yeah, that's who she was. And I said, if you went to your friend when she was still living, what would she say? Oh, she was a real go-getter. She was traveled the world. She loved new opportunities and change. She'd be saying, go for it, girl, go for it. Why should it be any different from spirit? Their personalities remain the same. Yes, they see from a different perspective, but they can bring advice. And I always say to people, the advice you receive from spirit is purely that. It's advice. They don't know what's right for you any more than anybody in this world does. You've got to take the advice, feel if it resonates with you, go with it. If it doesn't, let it go. Spirit's advice can be poor advice. It can be wrong. Absolutely. Why wouldn't it be? So I always say whenever I'm doing a sit-in, any advice I give, it's your responsibility to feel if it resonates with you and go with it. But just because spirit bring it doesn't necessarily mean it's right. Although generally the vast majority of advice from spirit, in my opinion, is very good. Generally. But sometimes, like that example, you'll get two different types where they can clash. So, but having said that, the mind of the medium can interfere. The medium can bring their own mind, their own wants and desires into play. And you've got to be very careful doing that. We have a responsibility with people's lives. So if you knowingly do that, you are not serving anybody. You're not serving your client in the sit-in. You're not serving a recipient in a demonstration. And you're not serving yourself, and you're not serving your soul. If you knowingly create information and place it in the mouth of spirit, expect spirit to have the hump with you. Expect spirit to be upset with you when you get to the spirit world and say, I didn't say those words, you did. Expect trouble when you get to spirit. A big queue of people standing there looking fierce, looking really angry. That could happen as well. So for me, whenever I work, I always try and work out where I'm sensing it from. Sometimes I'm sensing it psychically from the person. And, I will give it back to them and say, I'm picking this up from you. I'm always careful not to put words in the mouth of spirit. But if spirit do give it, I will honestly give it to the best of my ability. But I will give it with that warning, as I say, that, that's their opinion. If it feels right, go with it. If it doesn't, feel free to let it go. So I hope that all makes sense. So I'm going to bring this evening's session to a close. Thank you to everyone who's come. Some great questions there. It's been really enjoyable. I look forward to doing it all again next month. As I say, if you've enjoyed it, you can go on afterwards and hit the like button. If you're not subscribed to the channel, do subscribe. If you've enjoyed it and you want to show your appreciation, you can always make buy me a coffee through PayPal Me, or you can use the super thanks when the video's up. So thank you everybody for coming. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to seeing you all again in the next one. Take care. Bye for now.